Hi, and welcome to the Poultry Nerds podcast. I'm Carey Blackmon, and I'm here with my co-host for the show, Jennifer Bryant, and we're here to help you figure out how to raise the healthiest, happiest, and highest quality birds possible.
We're going to talk about if you want to order hatching eggs, or do you just want to order chicks, or do you want to wait and order started birds? Like the pros and cons to all three of those options.
I guess that would depend on what comes first, the egg, the chick, or the started bird.
The breeder comes first.
There you go. We've already talked about breeder selection.
Right.
That's in a previous episode that people could go pick up. So where do you get your bang for your buck?
Personally, I think it just depends on your infrastructure. If you are already set up with an incubator and a brooder and you know what you're doing, and I think hatching eggs would probably be the best bang for your buck at that point.
So I am very pro started bird, even though I have 2 large cabinet incubators, 2 barns, 16 different breeder pens, all that good stuff. I'm more believable with started pullets or some type of started bird, period, for me.
So when I got the Cochins, I started with a started trio. They were 4 months old. So I think that each category has its own pros and cons depending on what you want to do.
Like for me, I like reds, and I had found some really good looking reds, but they were not standard reds. They were close, but when you order hatching eggs, if you're just starting out and you did not go through or selecting the breeder and follow those, you're still trying to figure it out. And when you look on the internet and you see what people have, they have pictures, but is that what you're really getting when you order hatching eggs?
Let's just talk about hatching eggs for just a minute. So
Okay.
going to get quantity for your monetary investment and get the least amount of shipping cost. And
Yeah.
you're going to get the chance, like a lottery ticket, to have more chicks. So when you order hatching eggs, the industry standard is a 50% hatch rate. You could get 0 and you could get 100%. I have had people do both from my eggs because there's so many variables. The shipper handling, how much does the post office guy mad at you that day? The heat, cold isn't necessarily such a problem, but the heat in the summer is an issue. Your incubator quality and skills. What else? Hatching eggs is a gamble. It's like pulling the lottery ticket in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree. When you buy hatching eggs, it's a gamble from everything. Are you getting what you think you bought? Is half of them going to hatch? Is more than half? Because so let's say you want to get a decent amount of chicks because you know that roughly, if you're looking for a standard bird, something that's really good quality, a lot of breeders will suggest 10%. So with that in mind, you're going to order 100 eggs. You're going to hatch out 50 of them. Out of that 50, you're going to select 5 keepers.
If we're talking about chickens, I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking about chickens on that part. Now, obviously, with quail, most people are into your meat and eggs. And if it hatches and it grows, they'll be able to do something with it. Even that, if you're wanting to start your farm off, and so you order 100 eggs, 50 of them hatch out. Of that 50, you're going to have a hen-roux pullet, a hen-roux mix that's, again, like the lottery. You could be like my most recent hatch of Pharaohs, and it was over 80% rooster on that. And I was like, I put 200 birds in my incubator because I needed some hens. And I got a lot of dog meat,
Yep.
a lot of animal food.
So
And
if we're talking about quail, for those listeners, if we're talking about quail, yes, we talk about quail eggs in the hundreds. When I ship, we talk in the hundreds. Now, if we're talking your standard bred chickens, now you probably would only order maybe a dozen, 2 dozen eggs, if you're even lucky enough to find a breeder to share hatching eggs with you. I, for one, do not offer hatching eggs off of my chickens. I will offer chicks and started birds, but I don't do hatching eggs.
well,
So,
and that also depends for the listeners what kind of bird. Because if it's one of your dinosaurs, or no, not necessarily the dinosaurs, but one of your Cochins, they have an exorbitant amount of feathers. And unless the breeder even if the breeder knows that they have to trim some of those, the fertility is still
crap.
usually not good. A reputable breeder is not going to sell 12 eggs knowing that the fertility may only say 2 are fertile because it's going to make them look bad. They're not going to do it.
Which is why I don't do it. You know how I got started with the Cochins. So I found a breeder and I liked the pictures of her birds. Looking back in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't get birds from her. I ordered very expensive $300 a dozen hatching eggs and none of them hatched. She replaced them. I paid for shipping. She sent me 12 more. I got one to hatch and it didn't make it 2 days. So I had 0 chicks for over $300 in investment.
What kind of incubator did you put them in?
The 1502. I was
So you did stick them in a good cabinet incubator and still had awful results.
correct. Because right after that, all of her birds went broody. So fertility was already dropping anyway. So then what I did was I went back to ground zero, found another breeder with exactly what I wanted, and he offered me a started trio. And so what that means is they were 4 months old. In this particular case, they were 4 months old. He assessed them for any DQs that you could find at that age and made sure to send me birds, 2 females and a rooster, with no apparent DQs to start me off the best I possibly can. So in the hatching egg side, I spent over $300 and had 0 birds. And on the started bird side, I had 4-month-olds, and with shipping, it was $475 at the time. I don't know what it would be now, but I had 3 healthy birds that started laying, of course, the next spring, but they were already had been critiqued, had been started. They were past the super fragile stage, and I was on my way. And I had a reputable breeder assess them for me and send them to me. So not only did I get birds and shipping, they were off heat, they were started, disease free, healthy, and assessed by, and he's an APA judge also. And so they were already assessed by him to be DQ free at that age. So that was well worth the money for me.
Most definitely. Yeah. Definitely worth the money. So for me, the ones that I got, I bought 40 chicks. And after talking to some people that have been breeding longer than I've been alive, I knew that what I had was decent, but I also knew that I was anywhere from 5 to 8 generations from getting a bird that I could enter into a show and have a chance at winning, which that can be done. And, these chicks, I got them as chicks. And when this statement was made, they were 4 or 5 months old. And I know that's still young, but who you got yours from, he was an APA judge and he was able to say, hey, at 4 months, these are defect free. The person that looked at mine started telling me the issues and the things that I needed to work on and how I needed to find a pullet to put with this cockerel and with these traits and that traits to be able to breed that out. And once I bred one thing out, I'd have to breed another thing out and going on down the track like that. And for me, I essentially hit the red lotto with the bloodline that I have. And I was able to come across some really good birds that an APA judge said, hey, these birds right here, you could put these in a show. And they don't have any disqualifications. But here's the issue with your cockerel, your two pullets, they have these traits. When these breed, their offspring will not have that issue. And I was excited about that. And when I bought 30 chicks, what I spent on those 30 chicks is less than what I spent on the trio, unless you include gas and drive time to go somewhere that I was going already to bring them back.
Let's talk about ordering chicks then. So chicks, I would say, would be just a step above ordering hatching eggs, because there's no real way to assess them. Typically, you're going to get just hatched chicks sent to you. Now, I personally don't do that. I try to send mine at about a week old, but hatcheries and post office guidelines, they're supposed to be just hatched. But I guess I'm the rebel. So if you order chicks, just for general purposes, let's say they're straight out of the incubator, then you're getting a certain number of live chicks. So if you wanted, say, 20, you order 20, you're probably going to get 22. Most people will send you an extra one or two. I send one extra for every 10 ordered. And so you'll get exactly what you're paying for. And at that point, it's up to you to keep them alive and get them going. But now keep in mind that they have been stressed and the yolk, they're living off of the egg yolk. So you're making an assumption that egg yolk was healthy to begin with and full of nutrients. And then that the post office was quick to get them to you and the birds are not stressed to the point where you can't bring them back, which is why I started shipping at a week old, kind of weeds out the weaker ones, gets them good and started, and they can handle the stress of being in a box for a day, which is typically what I have found is just takes about a day for stuff to get there. And the post office has never once asked me how old the birds were inside that box. And I don't prep the information. So that's the way that I handle it. But you can't assess a week-old chick for anything other than does it have 3 toes and 2 wings, and it's pretty much the end of it. So you get what you get at that point. You will get more bang for your buck with chicks. So if you want to just do numbers with hatching eggs, let's just say for the sake of the conversation, you pay $2 an egg for hatching eggs and only 50% hatch. Then you paid $4 for that chick, right? And so if you can order chicks that are already hatched and healthy and are going at $5 a chick, then that but for sure is a better deal in my mind. And then if you can order sexed chicks, you're even doing even better, especially if you live somewhere where you can't deal with a bunch of roosters.
Yeah, that's true. So for me, I like chicks. Obviously, they're cute. But like you said, when you order a chick, you at least know that the hatchability of that egg was 100% because it's there and it's walking around. So you eliminate that part of the gamble. And at that point, it's really a matter of genetics and nutrition. Bird has to have vigor to be able to survive that trip. And then you have to provide it with adequate nutrition to rehydrate itself and carry on with life. To me, that increases the odds. Now, I do know that getting chicks shipped is more expensive than getting eggs shipped. It is less expensive than getting started pullets or cockerels shipped. But isn't that what you pay for is the odds?
I would say my average shipping cost on hatching eggs is somewhere in the $16 to $20 a box. The chick orders are going to be somewhere in the $50 to $60 range but you also have to keep in mind it's not just the shipping cost, it's also the cost of that shipping box because it's a
Hmm.
box. Feed, grow gel, shavings, everything, heaters.
Them heater pads are expensive.
They are. I need some more of them, and I was like, I need to find a deal on those because 'cause they're like $3 a piece on Amazon. So I'm gonna try to look somewhere else, but so I probably just in a box shipping out before you even put chicks in it, I probably have $20 in that box. So just keep that in mind. And then started birds would be about the same thing. I've shipped started birds out and I still put grow gel in there, still put shavings and feed. But obviously for sizing, you can put less birds in there. So I shipped a trio out to Oregon last fall and it took 2 boxes. The cockerel filled up a box and the 2 pullets went in a box together. So she had to pay for shipping for two. Typically that stuff is going to run you about $80 a box for that
Hmm.
bird. And that's about what I paid to get the Cochins down here. And I would pay it again in a heartbeat because it got my program started on a foot that would have taken me 2 years. And the shipping but all right. So the shipping on the started birds, let's just say you have 150 and 2 boxes for a trio. That is significantly cheaper than a brooder, feed, heat, and time. You're gonna have more than that in eggs or chicks.
Yeah,
So
that was fixing to say. You started off when you started with the hatching eggs, you had an incubator that was $1,000,
right.
which obviously a lot of people go with a $200 or $300 incubator, but still you're $200-300 for the incubator, $100, $200 for a brooder setup, depending on what route you go. Even if you go cheap with a storage container, by the time you get your heat plate and all that, you're in at $100. So you're looking like 300 for an incubator, 100 for brooder, that's $400. And then you got, let's see, 10 chickens will eat a bag of food in 2 weeks. So you're looking, another $100 in feed, easy for a trio to get them to 3 to 4 months. So you're at 500-600 bucks right there.
Right.
And you could have sped the process up 4 months and saved a few $100.
And got them judged.
Yeah, and got them from somebody that knows what they're getting, what you're getting.
Exactly. Exactly. And of that trio, I still have one of the hens. The other two are gone now, but one of the hens is still kicking and she lays me an egg about every day.
She's still doing her job.
She's still doing her job. She's broody all the dang time. But yes,
What's the offspring of those eggs?
they're showstoppers, aren't they?
Those are the ones, those are what you're showing right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I seen you win platters, ribbons, trophies, plaques. Yeah, she's still definitely doing her job. If that's the offspring she's throwing off, that's really nice.
Yep. Exactly. But now, even with started birds, you still have to breed them. You still have to cull hard. You can't just assume every offspring is going to be a show winner. Yeah. Let's kind of recap here because I got all over the board. So, if you have an incubator and you're set up to brood and you're set up to handle extra roosters, then I would order hatching eggs. But understand that it's typical to get 50% hatch rate, but it's also typical to get 0. And some of it may be the breeder's fault, but chances are it's not. It's just circumstance. And then if you decide to order chicks, you still need a breeder, still need heat, still need chick food, but the money you saved on the incubator, you're going to spend on shipping, at least some of it. But you have started birds. You have birds chirping and cute and fluffy and delivered to your door. And then started birds, they're going to be older. They're going to be off heat. You can put them straight outside. You can expect to get eggs off of them whenever they're supposed to lay. Some may lay pretty quick, and then you get big ones like mine that won't lay for a year. So, know your breed that you're ordering, but that sticker shock, I don't know, how can I explain this? The sticker shock of the shipping and of the birds, if you would step back and do the math on and the work put into it, it's still probably cheaper, honestly.
And like I usually or have a cull about point of lay. And some of them will get cold to the freezer, and some of them will get cold to people. And I have people, they say, I mean, why do you want $35? It's just a chicken. Yeah, $35 for a 4 to 6 month old bird. If you pull out your calculator and work a little bit of math to get over the sticker shock, you will actually find out that the bird is free. I'm charging you for the feed that it ate for the last 4 to 6 months. And when I've explained it to people, sometimes they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. And then I actually had one person say, I'm not spending more than $15 on a bag of feed. And I'm like, so what you're telling me is your chickens probably don't have adequate nutrition. And that's important to me because if I'm going to give one of my birds to somebody, that's a red flag because I want to make sure that they're going to be well taken care of.
So let me tell you a story. I went to the Green River show last fall in Kentucky, Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I had the only Cochins in the open show. And then there was some in the junior show. It's a smaller show. And I walked around quickly and looked at some of the other birds, but I'm pretty set on my breeds and I don't usually pay much attention to too many other birds. I was sitting there just waiting for the judging and everything. And this kid come over to me, and it turned out he was 17, and he come over to me and asked me, he said, are those your Cochins down there? And I said, yes. And he goes, gosh, do you ever sell them? And I said, yes, I do, but I don't have any with me for sale right now. And he said, well, I brought one with me today, but mine doesn't look like yours. And I have to tell you, I had walked by this bird probably 18 times and was at least sitting 6 feet away from it and had no idea it was a Cochin. And the reason being is it may have weighed 3 pounds. It was so small. And it didn't even look like a Bantam Cochin. He was meant to be a full-size bird, and they did not have any money to feed them. So it only got kitchen scraps and what it could find in the yard. And it may have weighed 3 pounds. He was so scrawny. And I felt bad for the bird, but I just politely and kindly told him that until he could afford proper feed, or at least some feed at that, he needed to just have yard birds. It was hard for me to say that to him. The rest of the story was his dad had got hurt and he had to quit school and get a job, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't change the fact that these are living animals that have to have feed. And
Right.
if you're going to have to have them, you have to feed them at least something. Obviously, this bird was alive and it was crowing, but you could tell by looking at it, it was nowhere near what it should have been. I didn't even recognize that it was a Cochin until he pointed it out. We stood there and looked at it for a while. That's how scrawny and malnutritioned it was.
And that is actually the perfect lead in to a show that we'll have coming up in a few weeks where we're going to talk to Jeff from Fertrail about nutrition and what it looks like. So there's that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Good.
that's one thing to me that is sad. Usually there's a sad story, whether it be the person had an unfortunate life incident or they just don't know. Because some people think, oh, I mean, they're natural scavengers, and they are, and they can pick up a lot of nutrition if you plant cover crops and have worms and stuff that they can eat. But that's not always the case either. So, the bird suffers.
Exactly. I hope that we helped people maybe make a decision that hatching eggs versus ordering chicks versus ordering started birds. And these would apply to all species: quail, chicken, turkey, ducks. A started duck, though, might make a soggy mess out of a cardboard box in the mail.
Yeah, probably so. They can be pretty messy.
I have to put them in a plastic tub.
But to me, when somebody asks me, I'm like, it's like everything else poultry related. It depends on what your goal is. What do you want to do? Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want the other? So that's why we wanted to talk about this, because in some situations, hatching eggs is the best thing to do. In others, chicks is the best thing. And for other people and their goals, getting a started trios, that's the route to go. Because, like, for me, I had the ability to do all of them, but getting the started trio sped my breeding process up to get what I was looking for, my ultimate goal, 5 to 8 years, maybe longer, because that's when you're dealing with genetics, it's a guess. And like for you to get you where you wanted, it sped your process up a lot too.
It did.
And with the luck that you had, it made up for some time.
And if you want to talk about quail for just a minute, I ship celadon hens and roosters breeding sets. And they're not feather sexable typically. And so people who just want to start off with a known breeder set so they can move forward from there will order from me, and I will send them out after they start laying, after I have confirmed, which I know my line is true blue. You don't know until you know when that mess up may occur. So the birds don't leave this property until a blue egg pops out of them, and then they go in a box and they get shipped to the purchaser. And I've not had a problem, and knock on wood, I won't have a problem. But those customers takes me back that they're so happy because when they get that box, typically there's a blue egg in the bottom of the box too. And not only do they get the bird, but they also get the blue egg to prove, yes, it's a celadon that they
Yep.
didn't had. So
They
there's a
open the box, they look down and they're like, oh, it's like winning the lottery instead of playing the lottery.
while I was trying to log in with you, somebody was texting me. They had just got their birds and there was eggs in the box. They were so excited. Yeah. Think about it. Sit down and think about your situation and what you're wanting to do. If you don't want to brood, get started birds. If you want to brood but don't have an incubator, get chicks. It's okay. Everybody has their preferences.
And I mean, some people, they just have that chick addiction. And I got to be honest, during chick season, I got to stay out of Tractor Supply, because you walk in the front door and you hear the chirps and the natural inquisitiveness inside of you. wants to go look at them. And then when you look at them, you're like, I don't have one of those. Oh, man, that thing, it's just a couple bucks. You take it home, don't have to worry about shipping or nothing.
Wow.
So I have to stay out.
Yep. Yep. No, that it doesn't get me anymore. It used to get me, but now that I know what quality looks like, I can just walk on by. It doesn't bother me. But honestly, I don't go on Tractor Supply very much. So very rarely do I go in there.
I try, especially during chick season. All right. That concludes the show for today. If anybody has any questions, make sure you send us an email at poultrynerds@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us this week. Before you go, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they are released. And they're released every week. Feel free to email us at poultrynerds@gmail.com to share your thoughts about the show. Until next time, Poultry Pals, keep clucking, keep learning, and keep it exciting. This is Carey signing off from Poultry Nerds. Feathers up, everyone.